Yeah,
I'd be
it seems
happy-
that was the case last time from what I've been told. So just
Yeah.
FYI.
Yeah.
So as far as establishing the selection criteria, what is the mechanism in doing that? Is that something that is going to come out of the forums? How would the trustees be able to opine and provide our selection criteria ahead of time? And really, the board, the superintendent president is the only employee the board has, as you taught us well, Narcissa. So how do we get to have that codified in the selection criteria?
Well,
what's the process?
ultimately, it comes to you for your approval, all right? So you're the end point.
Right, right.
But the developing point is different, and you have two options. For example, each of you can provide individual feedback directly to me, either call us or in writing. There's nothing that stops you. There's nothing that stops you as a board. You can do it right now, or you could say, have a public discussion on what is the board looking for. The search. There's nothing that stops you from that. What I typically recommend, though, is that the college has the same interests you have. So the truth is, if you start with the open forums and listen to the college, the nice thing that typically happens is that your priorities are reflected by the college.
Right.
So
And I just wanted to understand the process because I don't have a preference either way.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to get captured, but just wasn't sure. I wasn't clear
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
presentation.
So at the forums, we listen to everybody, we catch the themes, right? And we draft a document that's called the profile. That goes to the search committee as the next step. Then it comes to the board. And then you have to review it and you approve it as you see fit. So you have the ultimate voice in that
Okay.
document, okay?
And it's my understanding that October 21st, we're going to get feedback from multiple stakeholders, correct? And then based on that, are you going to come up with a draft selection criteria? And would that be circulated to the board in its entirety? Or is it more to the ad hoc committee first and then a
That's
two-step
your decision.
process?
Either way, my preference is, and I may be wrong on this, an ad hoc committee usually functions as helping with the process to get it moving,
Right.
right? And doesn't substitute for the thinking of the board around the profile.
That's correct.
Given our Brown Act
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that it comes to the, since time is of the essence, it seems, that we be a little bit agile with the review of the selection. Do you have a timeline that you're anticipating sending the draft selection criteria based on the feedback received from these folks?
Well, my thinking was to have a draft by Monday, okay, that we can circulate and still do the survey online so that people are reacting to the initial draft, telling us what's missing and adding. Give that a week and a half to 2 weeks to give everybody time, okay? And then hopefully from there finalize the draft.
Okay, so the survey, I'm sure, I know you touched on this, and forgive me if I'm failing to remember. Who does it go to? Is it internal and external stakeholders?
Yeah.
How does one get to fill out the survey?
We get the email list for everybody at the school. So everybody that works at the school. And
So
the
it's
student,
internal
everything.
stakeholders at the
Right,
college.
they'll get an actual message with the link,
I see.
okay? At your board meeting, the link is available to anybody because they'll be posted on your website also.
Right.
So anybody from the community that wants to give feedback can do it also.
Okay,
So
and
it's wide open.
oh, okay, and then how do you sift and sort? Do you just compile the top, like the common themes, and then present it to the board, or what's how does it typically done?
Everybody is guaranteed confidentiality. So I don't report back to you what individuals said. What I do is gather the themes of the priorities and then organize the profile around what are the long-term priorities, challenges, opportunities, What are the things that, as an institution, you want to get done? What is it? All right. And usually you don't want to have more than 3 to 5 to 6 of those, because you got to be realistic. If you have a list of 35 things you want to get done, people will say it's an impossible job. So, for example, you may be planning a bond initiative. Well, that's a big ticket item. You may be doing major construction. That's a big. You want to continue your student success initiative. That's a big one. Right? So those are the kind of typical. Then the second part is what fits you. What are you looking for? What's the skill set? And this is a horrible example, but when you're hiring a plumber, you want to make sure they know plumbing, right? So what are the skill set that you want to make sure that are important to you? And you want to put those in there. And then you have minimum qualifications, which says, if you don't have this, no need to apply. And the minimum qualification argument is usually around doctorate or master. Well, California takes care of that, because in California, all that's required is a master. You could say you prefer a doctorate, that's okay, but legally here, all you can require is a master's. Do you want somebody who has had full-time teaching experience? And that's something that the faculty always struggles with. Are you willing to consider equivalencies of experience, so that you have people from business and industry and other fields possibly applying? So I need to hear that from everybody, and then I come back to the board and say, here's what I heard, and then the board has the final decision on which
I see.
So,
And then, are you also going to be involved? I guess I have questions on what is typically the makeup of the composition of the selection committee. Is that something that you can speak to?
I can give advice on it. Yeah, I can give you
and
advice.
then the specific question I have is community members. And
Trustee Zia, we're going to address that in the next phase.
is Narcissa, is that a question for
Yeah,
Narcissa?
and-
That's my
and
You can ask me
Narcissa
questions.
will be here
Yeah,
for the next phase. I don't want to get into that,
yeah.
if you don't
Sure,
mind.
no problem. I just I wanted to understand what, based on your experience, which is extensive, what are some benchmarks or some comparable institutions' experience in doing that in selection criteria? What do they do? That's really what my question was,
Yeah.
President Baxter. But I can ask it in the next
Yeah.
item. And then lastly, what is typically the number of finalists that you've seen get recommended to the board?
We typically recommend 3 to 5, a minimum of 3, because if you only get 2 and 1 drops out, you don't have a choice, okay? Minimum of 3. 5, it's okay, or you could require 3 finalists and 1 or 2 alternates, just in case. So there are different ways of getting a recommendation from the committee, but what we typically recommend is 3 to 5. However, some boards will up that number. It is not unusual for a board to say, we want 7, or we want 6. Here's the difference, as I've seen it, okay? If the board has trustees serving on the search committee throughout the country, except for California, because you used to be an independent area that belonged to another country, so you're a little different. You and Texas, among other states. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So here's the issue. In most community college searches, a board member serves as the chair, and you typically have 2 to 3 trustees serving in the search committee. So the board does get 2 bites at the apple. That's the traditional model. In California, particularly in Southern California, it's done differently, where the board doesn't necessarily serve on the search committee, because you're going to have the final say. So in some cases, the board will say to the search committee, we want more choices, just in case, to satisfy that. I don't recommend one way or the other. What I'm saying is, you need to appoint a search committee that you respect and you trust, Because the worst thing that happens to the institution is for them to make a recommendation to the board, and then for board members to second guess the committee and say, we didn't know this candidate. There may be other candidates in the pool. Why should we consider these candidates? We weren't in the room with the search committee. So trusting that group is extremely important.
Well, that's a great point you're raising. It's quite a large group that we might not all know, but that's a separate item that I'll address later. But let's say we go through the 3 to 5 interviews, and the board will interview, correct?
Right.
And we don't have harmony or agreement, or we need to go down the list. Is that something that can happen? Is that I'm assuming it is, because we're
Well, you're in
hopefully
charge.
going to get a good
You can
pool.
do whatever you want, but is that in the best interest of the school? That's the point. In other words, a search reflects the culture and the integrity of the institution. If you appoint a search committee, I think you need to make a commitment to respect the recommendation they make. Legally, you don't have to. But it does more harm to an institution when the board starts second-guessing the outcome of the process that they put in place.
Well, I think that's a very unreasonable inference that one can make. It's really to get a more broad pool is what I'm getting at, and I don't see any issues with having more candidates to interview. I could certainly dedicate the time, and I'm sure my colleagues
The board,
may
or
want to
those,
consider.
you're talking about the board interviewing more candidates.
Yes.
Well, then you need to include that in the charge up front. That's what I'm saying. You're making the same point
Yeah,
I'm
I
making.
would recommend going beyond 3 to 5, but it's certainly in the embryonic stage right now, but it's something to consider, and I'll raise my other questions in the next item that's before us. Thank you, Narcissa. Great job.
Good points.
Thank you, Trustee Zia. Before I turn it over to Trustee Kellogg, you brought up a very important word called confidentiality. If people feel that they can't be honest, then they will not be honest. And so it's very important that the trustees do not attend these forums, and that the vice presidents not attend the forums, so that people on the faculty and the staff can honestly say how they feel, what they believe is the right thing. And Narcissa, you will be taking notes. Jackie will be helping you take notes, so that sometimes you start talking and you're not able to write down everything that's being said. And you brought up that your role is to listen
Right.
to what people are saying and document and come back with that. And so that people understand at these forums, it's an opportunity for them to give input.
Right.
Plus, with the surveys, so that the board has an idea of how the campus, the faculty, staff, students, and the community are feeling. Okay, well, now I'm going to turn over to Trustee Kellogg, who has an outline.
Well, I just want to just go over a couple things, because we still have a lot of things we have to do tonight. Some people have about their actual presentation, which I don't, but then I had a chance to review before it was presented to everyone here tonight. I do want to make just a couple of comments on, though, about some things that were said. The timeline, for example, it is a draft. Don't think it's just set in stone. There's going to be changes. Things happen.
Right.
We understand that. So everything you're going to see here today, please don't come back and say, well, on October 18th you said this. Well, there are things that are going to happen. Right. That said, we're going to have to tonight make a couple decisions. But in here that she has listed the dates. We all know how difficult it is to schedule a few people. Imagine a committee. That's why the dates are here. So when we get to the point about appointing individuals, I think it's important to tell them, these are the dates. Don't tell me you have conflicts with, because this takes a priority over almost everything at this point in time. So I think that's important to know going into it all. And even to the point of with the items that we're going to have to deal with. For example, it was brought up about some of the questions they asked. They always have a question about how the board functions. And in this today's world, I mean, those eyes right there, those cameras, they don't have to ask anyone. They can go YouTube and watch, and they'll make their own interpretation
You mean
of
you
it
just
all.
film me?
So yes, we are. You're on camera.
camera.
Every
Oh,
bit of it.
God.
So
I take it back.
yeah, well, so I just want to, so we've got the draft, the timeline. We as an ad hoc, we're trying to move this forward. The dates are there to help us as we go through the selection process. As we had an earlier presentation, when you have those meetings this Friday, and this is not the only time that people are going to have a chance to give input. Now, this is input about what you're looking for. It's more of a listening session. Downrange, we may have events where individual constituency groups can have an opportunity to meet with the finalists. That's an option. We don't know yet, but there's many things we can do, but I don't want people to think this is the one and only time you have any input at all, because it's too important of a position not to get input multiple times. I bring up that because in these committees, and we had a discussion earlier today, I doubt seriously workforce development is going to come up at the very front, just because of what I've heard and the groups that are going to be talked to. But that's important to me, and to the answer to Trustee Zia, that's why it comes back to us, and we look at things to make edits and so on and so forth, what we think we're looking for in a CEO as well. So I just want to make sure we have that. It's things we have to do, though, and tonight. The committee, we need to approve the committee. Why? More importantly, to keep this process going, is because we have to make appointments, and those appointments come to this board, and our next meeting is November 8th. November 8th. That's the next time we have an opportunity. If we don't get that done, the first meeting, which is already listed, is December 5th. Our next meeting is after that. So it's a case of tonight, we have to look at to approve the committee structure. We have to do things on recommending tonight also, but that's not the first one. But I want to get everyone's mindset around this. We as a board, because the ad hoc committee has to make a recommendation, we know that Superintendent President Ole, you're gone, and right away we forget who you are. But Oakley is going to be leaving, and therefore we know we either have to do an acting or an interim. And my definition of this only is I refer to acting, and we found out this isn't necessarily true, but acting is someone who is internal, already here. An interim is external. I do that, but we've had discussion. But that's a decision we as a board have to give direction to the ad hoc, because we have to bring that decision back at our next meeting on November 8th.
Right.
If it's an interim process and we're going to go outside the college, that's another process that she can handle, but it's another process that we have to deal with. So these are the questions we have to talk about. The website, it came up earlier as far as information. Once this is, we have some final on what the application is going to look like, which is very important to many people. We are going to have it posted so people can go on our website and start to pull all the application process, timelines, everything else. It'll be up there front and center so people can easily access it. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to hit on. The biggest idea of all, though, is what we have till tonight is the committee. And by the way, the committee structure we had, that we looked at, what was it last time? We looked for balance. And so actually I want to bet with Trustee Zia, because you always get people to say, we need to have more representation. And we didn't make a monetary bet, unfortunately, because I knew I would have won. But we look at it as the ad hoc committee recommending back to the full board for review, is how it's a balanced approach. We get a lot of people input in this to give good recommendations to the board. And that's why this structure was recommended, and that's what we're going to review and approve tonight. And then we move forward, the appointments of individual members, go forward. The other point that was made, which is a good one, about ad hoc committee did not want to put in actually trustee members. We felt that was probably, because we make the final decision anyway, so we felt that was not probably the best way to do it. And it seems to be a custom of Southern California, with rare exception. And the other one is that when we finally have this committee, when we put it all together, that the president of the board will actually appoint a chairperson. The reason for that is that you don't get into these internal where you get 22 people, and usually there's 22 people that all want to be the chairman, because then they're really important. You eliminate that by having the president or the ad hoc committee make the recommendation, and that's one less thing they deal with. and they stay focused on the item of getting through this process. So I just want to touch on, because we still have a couple items, the committee, the direction of an interim or an acting, and I think that's enough for one night. So I'll stop there and turn it back over to President Baxter.
Okay. Do we need to have a board action on the timeline? That's all, so this is all presentation? Okay, and do we need a board action on the charge to the search committee? That's in the packet. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
If I can add, in the proposal we submitted and the contract we have with you, that's already described in there. So
yeah.
you
yeah,
have that in place.
Well, we haven't seen your proposal. The rest of the board hasn't seen it. So I would certainly.
It's an absolutely marvelous proposal, and we can
I'm
send you
sure
a
it
copy.
is. I'm sure it is.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair. Just the fact that we're just sort of getting started, I think we probably should have had a separate board meeting just on this issue alone. We have such a heavy agenda tonight. We're probably going to be here till midnight. I'm in
Look at the
agreement.
excitement on the students' faces.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with about 95% of what has already been stated regarding the search. And of that 5% that I disagree with, Madam Chair, respectfully, with regard to the forums on Friday, and Narcissa, I know that you have a ton of experience in this, but in reading page 10 of your presentation, October 21st, the visits to facilitate a series of public forums, nothing in the word public forum implies any type of confidentiality in terms of what the stakeholders or what interested parties will be saying on Friday. I personally wish I had the time to attend all 3 forums, even if I'm just sitting in the back taking notes. But I believe that, you know, in taking my job very seriously, I think that everyone keeps telling us, and me, the most important job you have is to hire a superintendent president. I wish I could be at all 3 and sit in the back and take notes and listen. And I think that they should be televised. I think that the public should be involved in watching and viewing. But I think that the confidentiality issue is more for the applicant, the selection committee, the discussions therein, behind closed doors. That might be where the confidentiality matters. But in terms of the public forums, I don't think trustees should be discouraged from attending those. I think it's our job to be there, whether we speak or not, whether we're just a part of it or not. I personally don't want to be a part of the forum, but I think I should be there at least listening, taking notes, especially if it's not going to be televised. Who's taking notes? Who's going to give us that? And even if you do take copious notes, what a speaker would say and the passion that they feel or their facial expression or gesture will be lost in a note or a piece of paper. So I just say that, Madam Chair, respectfully, as far as the public forums on Friday, I would like to attend. I'm hoping to attend at least one of them. And the other thing, as far as the selection committee, I mean, I hope that we're going to spend some time talking about that, because I actually have several notes on here.
Yeah, we're going to make that's going to be a board action.
Okay.
So don't worry, you will have time for that.
Is it okay if I respond
Sure,
to your
and I'd like
question?
to hear your.
Yeah, every college is different, okay? And this is an important process. And one of the key elements of this is making sure that the school feels comfortable and the school is ready. I'm going to be representing you to candidates, and I'm going to be writing materials for you.
Okay, it's not.
The forum gives me an opportunity to listen to a wide range of different positions of the institution. I'm looking for the emotions, you're right, I'm looking for the wording they're using, I'm looking for all those things. It's not an investigation. It's part of the sacred values that we have about shared governance and respecting the faculty, the administration, the student body to be able in their own community to express what they may be happy about or unhappy about without being held accountable for what they said. whether we like it or not, there are power relationships. As trustees, you have power. As soon as you're in the room, it changes the environment. It's normal. Even if it's not intentional, your presence will shut people down. And that's the reality. That's California, that's Texas, that's every place. So I would respectfully say, I know you want to hear from the staff, et cetera. But for this, let's give them a chance to honestly and frankly express their opinion. I don't know most of the people at the college, so I can't hold them accountable for what they say. But they'll have an opportunity to express each other. Let me give you an example. I'm doing another search in Texas, and I met with all of the faculty in one session, all the support staff, classified staff in another, et cetera. In the faculty session, there was anger, hostility. I mean, it was vicious in that particular institution. But because they were given the opportunity to express and get that out, and we were able to have a real frank discussion, by the end of that session, everybody stood up and clapped each other and said, we're going to be part of the search process. So the forums is about me listening, but it's also giving the college an opportunity to express their opinion, good or bad, sharing it with each other, and then they hold each other accountable. Because if somebody says, this is the most important thing at the college, we got to have that, other faculty will say, no, I don't agree with that. And that's what happens at a forum. So I mean, you're the board. I can't tell you what to do. All I can say is higher ed is very unique in its culture. And this is part of shared governance. In the same way that the faculty senate has its own meetings and classified staff, this is part of being respectful and giving them an opportunity to express those opinions. I've been through this enough that sometimes what I'm doing is therapy. In other times, what I'm doing is just simply listening. I would not tape forums at all, because this is about helping me understand the institution so I can really represent you. So I can say to potential candidates, these are the brightest, most informed, passionate people, or I can say, you're perfect for this place because you're a change agent and you have the personality that will heal the institution. So I'm looking in those forums to make a determination of where am I going to go. Do you want a change agent? Are you looking for a healer? Are you looking for a system organizer? What is it? And I'm looking for that to get a sense of this institution. I'm also looking for it so I can come back to the board and say, I think we need more time. There's a lot of healing that needs to take place. And I'm not saying that's the case here. I'm just trying to explain the sensitivity of those forums. Again, you're the board members. You can do that, but understand the power and the presence. Your presence changes the dynamics. And again, each of you has to make that decision, because they are public forums, and you are part of the public.
Okay, thank you, and I hope that clarifies.
Well,
Trustee
President
Malauulu?
Baxter, I have something to add.
And it's about this,
Yes,
it's not about
it's
something
about-
else. Okay.
Yeah. I know there's been, you'd sometimes like to attempt to censor what I'm trying to say. Maybe it's the chair's job, but I want to echo Trustee Malauulu's remarks. I have to tell you, the way this ad hoc committee is going about it, frankly, I'm disappointed that we're being discouraged. Our faculty, our administrators, we've had multiple sessions with them. When I first got on the board, Trustee Malauulu's predecessor that she successfully unsat recently, and we met with the constituents that we have internally, and they had no qualms about sharing issues and really saying what's on their mind. So we are also members of the public. Incidentally, I am not going to be available on Friday, October 21st, but I wholeheartedly and 100% agree with Trustee Malauulu's points. We have every right to participate as part of the shared governance model. That's precisely the reason why. And if anybody has any issues, we have the survey that you were mentioning, that there's the anonymity involved with that. So I disagree. I think we should give opportunities, should trustees want to participate. If anybody has any issues, you can certainly express it through the survey by way of being anonymous and expressing that.
Well, my goal is to unify the board, so I'm going to let you guys hash this out at another time, but I think you need to make some decisions.
Can I make a quick comment about this? It's a kind of a point of order. It's my understanding that all that's before us tonight is the composition of the search committee.
That's the next item.
Excuse me?
That's the next item.
Well, then, I mean,
We're not at 3.2 yet.
I'm sorry.